Welcome to Tent Talk, the podcast with Nancy McCready, where we talk about life under the big tent of God's presence and the provoking process of discipleship. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tent Talk. This is Nancy McCready. In the next 2 episodes, you are going to hear me reading from my own writings on destiny relationships as it fits into this series of becoming true leaders, His leaders. And it's very provoking, and I'm praying that it's going to cause you to really think and meditate on what you're hearing, because I ask this question. It's kind of a subtle question, behind the scenes question, is what do you do when you're the most popular person in the room? What are you doing with the relational currency that you have, with the favor that God has put upon you, and when you are in relationships with other people? And from what source will you even learn how to live in that way? So, take a listen, my friends, and let it provoke you under the big tent of God's presence as He is maturing His sons. Love you all. As promised, on this episode, we are going to continue with reading out of some of my own writings on destiny, relationships. We are still in True Leaders, His leaders. We were talking last time about what it means for us to be receiving love from the Father. And then the Father is putting us in right relationship with Himself. He's putting us, if you will, in right love and order with our own selves. Okay, how you think about yourself, deal with yourself, right? Relate to yourself, okay, the new man. And then, of course, then how that begins to spread in our relationships with others. And destiny relationships are those which the Father Himself have placed us in. So we want to remember they are of a different breed altogether. They're designed to provoke us like nothing else we have ever known. We must understand that. Now, my friends, you picked your spouse. You didn't pick your family that you were born into, but you picked your spouse, right? You have chosen your friends. You picked your pastor, right? And that you're in those relationships, right? So we need to be careful that we don't ascribe certain things to God that are not God's. Now, will God use all of those? Yes, He will. God may tell you that you don't need to be in certain relationships. God will teach you how to navigate through certain relationships. But we must first learn what God means by love and relationships and all from Him, and let it be deeply worked in us. We're not here to straighten out everybody else. He's straightening all the crooked places in us. Because how can we be those who will serve and lead according to God, what He means by that, if we are not learning deeply from Him? So here we go, continuing in part 1 of Destiny Relationships. That's the writings of mine. God prefers honesty. He longs for honest conversations rather than fluff talk with no substance. When we are honest, we are closer to seeing the destructiveness of our own ways, and therefore closer to being granted the gift of repentance. We often say yes, but we act no. We often say we want to change, but do not do the follow-up work to promote true change. God provokes us to truth. He continues to speak it, reveal it, and demonstrate it in the way He interacts with us. He doesn't tell us what we want to hear, but what we need to hear. He has our best interest at heart, not self-protection for His heart. This enables Him to continue and persevere in truth without being deflected by our anger, pretense, and dishonesty. We can say all day how much we want to change as we lie to ourselves and others, but the day we are honest with God and ourselves, because He has brought us to this honesty by the way He interacts with us, now we can begin to own our boundaries with God and allow Him to work deep inside of us. So number 1 was God prefers honesty. Number 2, God provokes us to truth. See, if you allow Him and you're learning His way, now you're going to learn how the way of your new life as the new man operates. This is a whole nother way of relationships. This is not, I'm going to try to just be a nicer, kinder, gentler person. No. Self can't produce what I'm talking about. Can't happen. Number 3, and this flows out of some of what we heard out of spiritual leadership about anger. So number 3, God allows for anger. We often fear being honest because it was not safe to express honesty in our early human relationships. And self always chooses dark over light. We fear abandonment and retaliation. We fear being left alone. We seek to avoid personal attack and loss. God desires truth in our deepest and innermost parts. He is seeking real relationship with us. He wants to hear it all, no matter how irreverent we may think it is. When we own what is within our own boundaries, our own self, and bring it to Him in the light, then God can do something about it. So let me just expound here for a minute. Many of us avoid anger at all cost. Maybe you had to manage someone else's anger in your early years. So therefore, the ability to be able to express your own is almost like not even a thought. It's that I've got to manage their anger. I've got to manage, their fits of rage. I've got to try to be good, walk on eggshells, never, ever tell the truth. The minute you, quote, pop off, okay, that anger is going to fly. It's going to bring you great harm, pain, and in the resulting years, much judgment, much bitterness and resentment. Now all that's carrying over into current relationships. So though I want to be in relationship with other people, whether they're authority figures or not, the whole way I start relating, right, is coming out of that. Well, you can't really say anything. I mean, you can't, you can't express, your own thoughts because that upsets everybody. So if fear, my friends, this is why perfect love casts out fear. It runs it out of doors. Is if you leave me simply because I am stating the truth, then so be it. Now, many times the fear that we have is irrational and nobody's leaving. It might be uncomfortable. It could be tense. But if your inward feeler cannot bear discomfort, tension, the unknown, you cannot bear, and you say, I can't stand this feeling, you will do anything to avoid it. And my friends, in our life with God, I can tell God what's real and true, especially as He's showing it to me. And He encourages this. How can we be real leaders if we think, well, I can't say anything to upset the other leader, Then when you become a leader, guess what? You expect everybody else to walk on eggshells around you. We can't have that cycle going on. That can't be the generational baton that we pass to others. If you're the most popular person in the room, true leaders, His leaders, what will you do with that? Will you expect everybody else to kowtow to you like you've been kowtowing to everybody? That's not God's way. There is so much I can say about that. But let's go to the next one. And I think I almost lost my way there. I got so into that. The next one, number 4, it is God's way of life to live in the light. No eggshell walking, no chicken talking. Really? Did I write that? I think I did. No eggshell walking, no chicken talking. God respects our boundaries and expects His boundaries to be respected also. If He says no, He means no. And we must honor His freedom. We must not put demands on Him to prove His love for us or demand that He must do what we think is best. Here we are in danger of testing God's freedom. When we are angry with Him for what He does not do, we are not allowing Him the freedom to be who He is. Now, He's still who He is. So don't read anything into this that I'm not saying. Right? But what this means is that self cannot stand the freedom of others. Therefore, it can't stand the freedom of God. Self wants to control, Now, you may be recognizing right now where self has you living as a control freak, and you might also be realizing that you have been living under the control of a control freak out of fear. There may be many things that you're realizing at this moment. My friends, that's why we need to get under the big tent of God's presence and let Him mature us and disciple us. The basic problem in human relationships is freedom. We call people bad because they do not do what we want them to do. We judge them for being themselves, for fulfilling their wishes. We withdraw love from them when they do what they feel is best for them, but it is not what we think is best for them or what we want them to do. And we do the same with God. We feel entitled to God's favor as if He has to do what we want Him to. How do you feel when someone asks you for a favor but does not give you a free choice? This childish entitlement gets many people dissatisfied with God the same way they are dissatisfied with others in their lives. Remember, self hates the freedom of others. God is free from us. I think this is the fifth statement about God that's teaching us about His relational dynamics. God is free from us. When He does something for us, He does it out of choice. He is not under compulsion, guilt, or manipulation. He does things like dying for us because He wants to, because He chooses to. We can rest in His pure love knowing He has no hidden resentments in what He does. His freedom allows Him to love. I mean, He is freedom. Oh my friends. I think this is a good place to be able to stop here. There's a bit more in this, but I think this is a good place to stop. These are, 5 major statements about God and His free way of living. And my friends, if that is how God lives, and we share in His life and nature, then this is how He's going to encourage us to live. Right? We must learn from Him, of Him. We must recognize, where is it that I can't stand the fact that others are exerting their freedom? Like maybe they've chosen to leave me. Maybe they've chosen to not love me. Maybe they have chosen not to respect me. That may not have anything to do with me or with you. And I'm trying to explain to them, I've loved you, and why have you not loved me? Because they choose not to love, right? Isn't it amazing how oftentimes the way we're loving others is really we're trying to instruct them on how we want them to love us? Like, I was good to you. I encouraged you. Why don't you encourage me? Do you understand what I'm saying, what I'm drawing out there? That many times we aren't loving according to God, we're loving according to us, and we're trying to tell other people, look what I've done for you, now I want you to do the same for me. Oh, I'm sorry, I raised my voice. My. We are about to mature. Holy shift. We are about to mature. We are about, it feels like, just fall face into God and be like, God, you must deal with me as with a son. Deal with me according to your life inside of me. Raise me up, a true leader who's gone in for myself and then holds the door open for others. A true leader, your leader, Father. Raise me up for this hour of history. All right, my friends. I think that's enough for today because I'm encouraging you to think upon these things. I was just talking with one of my friends earlier about how important it is, the amount of thought and study we give back to what we're hearing. Oh, that's not original with me. That's actually Mark 4:23 and 24. Jesus himself, wisdom himself speaking to us. Do you remember in Galatians 3 verse 1 when Paul's addressing the Galatians and he calls them senseless, unreflecting, unthinking, stupid, crazy Galatians? Well, this is a part of it. Jesus says there in Mark 4, be careful what you're hearing and listening to, because it's the amount of thought, study, meditation, all of that you give back to what you're hearing that determines how much fruit it bears in your life. If you're spending a lot of time, my friends, thinking back over all of the arguments, all the hurtful words, all the, this and that, my friend, it just bears more fruit. I mean, it just stirs you more and more and more. Now, it needs to be addressed, but what is God's way of addressing all of that? How do we address things? In ourselves, right? But if you flip this into when you're hearing the word, when you're being discipled, this is a part of the mentoring agenda, is if you say, ooh, I have a mentoring appointment tomorrow. It's on Tuesday. Oh, and it's Monday. Oh, I need to hurry up and listen to my homework. I mean, how many of you know you're going to benefit some, maybe 30? But what if you were giving more time to listen and more than time to give thought and study and meditation back to what you just listened to? Now you're going to think about it and you're going to increase that. And you have 2 to 7 days to be able to do that, right? You have time to think and ponder and meditate and read again, listen again. Oh, yes. Now the word starts to bear more fruit, more understanding, more revelation in you as Holy Spirit is leading you. This is what Jesus is saying. So are we still unreflecting? Do we never think about what God is really saying to us? Do we stay with him and let him talk to us about honesty, about truth, about anger, about living in the light, about freedom? Do we, right? Do we talk to him in that way? Do we talk to him about what we just heard? I pray you're doing that in these episodes. So, until next time, my friends, love you all. All right, I'm stepping in here at the end of these episodes to thank our amazing NMM partners. We have many people that we're partnered with in relationships, and I appreciate all levels of partnership. I do want to give a special thanks to those who are our financial partners. I don't know if I would ever have the words to be able to adequately express what they're sowing into NMM as we then turn around and sow it out into the discipling of nations and the restoring of mature sons to the Father. So I want to give a special thanks today to Lisa J., Leticia H., Bina L., and Jennifer P. I want to thank those who are our corporate partners. We have thanked them many times here, but many of them, as you're listening to these episodes, are literally in real time landing in the USA, coming in from Europe. And we are so glad to be in these destiny relationships, just like you're listening here on these episodes, with them for the Father's purposes. And we are so, so glad to be in partnership with many leaders out of Germany, Poland, Austria, the United Kingdom, in the United States of America, out of Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas. We are in a season of major, massive shift. And I want to give you a heads up to all the partners out there. We are headed into our end-of-year giving campaign. And this year, it will be Holy Shift. The expansion that God is bringing is massive. It may be unseen, it may be hidden, but if you're close with us and you're in destiny relationships with us, then you understand, right? That not everything that's fruitful and flourishing is always big on the stage. It is exactly the measure that the Father is calling for, but He has told us to prune back so that we can scale up. And that means we are all going to new levels. So I just wanted to step in here at the end of this episode today and be able to encourage you and to thank you, because Tent Talk is the podcast of Nancy McCready Ministries, and we are able to do this and all of our other projects, all of our other ways and means of discipling nations because of the partners that we have. If you're not yet a financial partner with NMM, I encourage you to go to nancymccready.com, click the giving button, and let us partner with you and you with us as we all move together in this holy shift time. Love you all.